So welcome to your Tuesday night yin class. We are starting in child's pose, as I had mentioned. So if you want to make this more assortive, just grab some pillows and you can place them one on top of the other or long, and then you can always drape over top of the pillows. I know for some of you that your knees get quite tight in child's pose, so you can always take pillows back behind your knees to just lessen the angle of bend and flexion that you have in your knee joints. You're welcome to bring knees together and big toes together, or you can always take knees wide and big toes together to touch. Hands can drape forward, or really any variation of your choosing. And then notice if there's an urgency to push into this pose. And remember that this is really just a grounding portion of the practice. So you're not trying to get anywhere or get to a particular depth. This is just to simply land close to the earth and allow yourself to feel supported without the rest of the world tugging at the corners of your being, that you just get some peace and quiet and stillness. So if you do need to take any movement before you fully drop into this shape, just doing so now that you can start to ease into the quiet corners of your body. Maybe for the first time today, you can hear the sound of your breath. And let any of the action items just melt away. So any of those to-do lists or things you have to think about, you have to remember, just trusting that those will still be there when you finish practice. Same with anything that's already happened today. You don't have to hold that in your consciousness right now. Right now is for the present moment to simply be. And as you just lay in this pose and grounding, perhaps noticing what brought you to your practice tonight. Sometimes it's a word, a sentence, sometimes it's just a feeling. And can you just honor that? That the why is important. It's more important than the poses or even than the breath, the why we show up. Because it anchors us to our Purusha, our inner light, or our higher self. So beyond the labels, the lists, that it's almost this brief moment of enlightenment of why we're here. Whenever you find that answer, just let it infuse every cell of your body. Let your intention become a part of this practice. So slowly peel yourself away from your mat and move in towards a tabletop shape. And to start off our practice, just bringing in some movement, but maybe allow yourself to move slower than you normally would. So this could be cat-cow movements of the spine. You could shift your hips or shoulders side to side. You can drop your hips back or forward. Just let this be intuitive movement. And wherever your body wants to lead you, just follow. Especially in the practice of stillness, it can be nice just to kind of shift through the tension the body's still holding. So it's a little bit more graceful to land in the stillness and the quiet. So if you need a little bit more time with that, just doing so now. Otherwise, you're going to, from tabletop, just start to lower yourself, belly and then heart onto the ground. Take your hands to plant on top of one another, and then forehead on top of your hands. Okay, so just laying down onto your belly. If you find lower back gets a little bit tense, walk your feet out slightly wider than hip width distance. Toes might even brush the edges of your mat. Heels can drop in. And then check in with your shoulders. Those like to hike up to our ears. So just soften shoulders down your back. Let your body rest heavy. And before moving into our next shape, just simply take 3 big breaths all the way down to your belly. Feel your front side body push into the mat as the back of your body rises. And then as you exhale, a full body surrender. So Sphinx pose, from this shape, just gently start to hover your head off of your hands and then pull your elbows in so that they line up underneath your shoulders. Now for some of us that might be a little bit too high and too much extension into the low back. So then you'll just walk your fingertips slightly forward and you'll lower a little bit more. Head and neck placement is really yogi's choice. So you can keep your head as an extension of your spine so that there's no crease or break in that line. Sometimes it's nice to just let your head hang, or you can always place a block or pillows in front of your forehead to rest on. If you are feeling a pinching in the low back at all, just walk your fingertips further forward so you're not lifted up quite as high. And then just check in that the back of your body is relaxed. Soften into bottoms of your feet, your calves, glutes like to fire up and tense up, so really soften into the backs of your hips. Let the front side of your body connect heavy onto your mat. And then maybe just allowing some space to come back to that intention. It's less about what we're doing in this practice and almost more about the unraveling, the pausing, the letting go so that nature can just take its course, that we have room for intentions to land. So whatever it is that brought you to your mat, my guess is that you probably haven't had a lot of time to cultivate that word or phrase. Let go of the judgment if that's the case, but just a reminder that these things take time and they need space to land. So maybe tonight is just about carving out some space, opening up, so that you're open to receiving whatever this intention is. The silence of this practice is just a place for you to unravel any thoughts that are tangled, any stories that are starting to weave into your beliefs or how we speak about ourselves or the world. The silence offers clarity, not in the doing, but simply just by being. You have the space to see things almost with a new perspective. See a little clearer. Let's just take about 5 or 6 more breaths. Once again, softening into your body if there's anywhere you've tensed up. Physically giving your body some space to just breathe. And then from here, in the next couple of breaths from Sphinx, you can just come back to where you started. So start to walk your elbows out wide. Place one hand on top of the other, and then forehead onto the backs of your hands. So this is a space of your third eye center, your third eye chakra. And it's said to be the space of your right to see without having to see. So your intuition. Okay, whether or not that physical space in the body lands with you, we all have felt that gut feeling or that nudge, and this is what draws us to our intention. So just keeping that intention within the practice. Allow whatever happened before this moment to just fade and clear some space for right now. Okay. Going to work a little bit into the backs of the shoulders, so a couple of different variations. Come back up to Sphinx as you were. You're not actually going to stay here, but just lifting up enough that you can start to find maybe a pillow or a block and just put it so that it comes about your fingertips, where your fingertips are, maybe even closer to wrists. And then take your right arm and thread it behind your left elbow. So your right arm is coming underneath your chest. You can always use your left hand to help bring your pillow in so that you lay your right cheek onto your pillow. Now this pose is a half variation. So if you wanted to play with the full variation, you would then take your left arm and thread it to the other side, and then forehead instead of cheek would rest onto your pillow. Now just be mindful with whatever variation you've chosen, whether it's the half or the full, that shoulders aren't coming up to ears and arms constricting your airway. So you really want shoulders melted down. If you are in that half variation, it can feel nice to add in half or sleeping frog as well. And so then you just slide your left knee out to the side at a comfortable place. The more sensation you want, the heavier you'll rest your upper body over your arm. If you need less sensation, you'll just roll more towards your right side so that your body is a little bit lifted away from the earth. Know that you have full agency to just choose what is right for you today, even if that's completely different than any other day. Trust that intuition, that body wisdom, and the nudges that your body speaks to you with of what it needs, what it's craving. This is really just a practice in listening when words aren't being used, and learning to trust what we feel. And if we can trust these small nudges of our body, perhaps we can trust the bigger ones off of the mat, the scary ones that we can trust it's okay to just feel what we feel. Notice if you've slipped outside of your body and traveled towards your mind. You can give yourself the grace just to meet back within your body. You've probably spent majority of your day operating out of your mind, out of the thoughts connected to your brain. And so just giving yourself that space away from the operations, the doing, the thinking, and just to be within your body as an observer, to just notice. That tonight is enough to just notice. And then if you do need to make any changes, you're always welcome to shift your body, soften, relax, lessen, or deepen. But just making sure that this act of doing comes from that innate knowledge and wisdom from the body, not from the mind telling you what to do, but your body guiding you. We'll just take a few more breaths on this side. Now, if you have taken both arms underneath, you're going to release in the same order. So the arm that came underneath last, that's going to come out first. So that'll be your left arm. And then you can slowly take your right arm out from underneath. And just bring either cheek to your mat and take your hands down beside your body, palms face up. Now, if you do need to move or shift, you can always just gently rock your hips side to side, or you can bend your knees and drop your feet to the left and to the right. If you're like me and low back gets a little bit tense being on the ground on your belly, know that you can always press back to a child's pose for a couple of breaths and then meet back onto your belly for the other side. So there's absolutely no rush to come into the same variation on the other side. You can bring yourself up to a sphinx to have some space, and then this time left arm will thread underneath, and then right arm can just slide forward. If you took the double arm variation on the first side, try it on this one. So right arm will slide over to the left. And before fully settling into your pose, just soften through your shoulders and the muscles of your head and neck. You are meant to find some softness. So thinking is very quick. It's typically hard. The qualities are a little bit more yang in nature, whereas feeling is a little bit more fluid. It's not black or white, it's gray. It's not always easy to explain. And so really just trying to find that area where you're almost just kind of floating in the body between one sensation and the next. Let go of your need to control this practice and just trust your body to guide you. Inevitably, your mind will wander. This is the function of the brain to think. And when we get uncomfortable, we tend to distract. So when stillness or silence seems like a lot, we distract by going to our thoughts. So you will find that you get lost in certain thoughts and go on a bit of a avalanche of one thought building on another, and all of a sudden you're snowballing. And that's okay. The art of this practice is just to notice when you're checking out of the present moment. Typically those thoughts are of the future, past. So you want to try to just bring yourself back to what's right here, right now. So the sound of your breath, sensations, maybe even that intention. Because the present moment is really simple. It doesn't take up a lot of room in our minds, which gives us this space to just be with that intention or whatever we're cultivating by actually not doing. So just in these last few breaths on this side, to just let go of any attachments you've made throughout this pose and just come back to breath and intention. And then once again, just take your time to ease out of this shape. Slowly unthreading one arm at a time. Come onto your belly. Take your opposite cheek to your mat. Hands can just come down beside you, palms face up. And let your body rest heavy. You might feel some sensation kind of sifting away as time passes. So notice this natural rhythm of your body, that it does move without you needing to force it. It's just a little slower than we're used to. Now, if you need longer in this transition, you are welcome to take it. If you are ready to slowly move out, place your hands underneath your shoulders and just start to rise away from the earth. I'm always such a big advocate for moving if you need a yin, so this might be a nice place just to shift the hips or shoulders, but just really gentle, small movements. Eventually, over the next few breaths, you will make your way onto your seat for a fold of your choice. So as you transition through this, I'll give you a couple of options. Butterfly fold, you can take soles of your feet together, knees out to the side, and you can always take pillows or blocks underneath your knees. And then just hinging at the hips, start to drape forward. You can take caterpillar, which is legs extended out in front of you long. And if you're taking that, just shift side to side so you can really root through your sits bones, and then folding. For some of you, just a cross-legged seat will be comfortable to fold in, or even a fetal fold with feet planted, knees bent. But you're just looking for this flexion of the spine. So creating some space in the back body. Be mindful of where you place your head and neck, and that there's no pulling or tension in the back of the neck. So a good practice is to support your forehead if you can. And then that way you can let your head rest heavy without any muscles in your back body having to contract to hold your head up. The average human head is about 10 to 12 pounds, which is a pretty significant proportion of the human body weight. And so if you can just prop that up in your fold, that will often help to let you relax a little bit deeper into this pose. Know that you can always change your mind and change depth if your body is giving you cues that it's no longer comfortable to be where it is. But also know that sometimes the mind jumps in there and it wants to take over and tell you what to do. So really just finding that awareness of what is my body speaking to me versus what is my mind and past habits or stories telling me. And really just starting to trust your body, because your body is real in this moment. The thoughts, the stories, those are just built on previous experience and future expectation. But the sensations in your body, those are real. Okay, so just listen to that and move through this accordingly. You know, when I first started Yin, I thought you had to be still. And so I'd hold myself in poses that were harmful and I couldn't settle and I was stressed trying to be perfectly still. And, you know, as I've moved through this journey of yoga, it's become very clear it's not about perfectly still. It's about functionality and creating a practice that comes from love, not expectation or approval. So see if you can express to your body how much you love and appreciate it by how you practice. You find the sound of your breath. Maybe if you have music playing in the background, just kind of coming back into tune, letting the music wash over you. Back into tune with the present moment, the natural rhythms of your body. Let's take 8 more breaths, so just about 1 more full minute. So knowing that you are almost through this pose, you allow yourself to relax. You don't have to hold strong or force through. All you have to do is take about 6 more breaths. Breathe out through your mouth. That will help to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. Even letting your exhales be a little bit longer than the inhale. When you are coming out of this fold, let your head come up last. So you can just walk your hands alongside your legs up towards your hips. Keep your chin tucked until all of your vertebrae start to stack. And then you can lift your chin up. If your knees are out wide, just pick your knees up and straighten out your legs. And walk your hands back and just lean into your hands. Taking some of that flexion out of your hips. You might even rest the back of your head onto shoulders. That can feel nice for your neck. Notice all of that previous sensation shifting. As always, you are welcome to take different variations. So you'll start to walk your hands back in towards your body. And we're moving towards double pigeon or square. So bending into your right knee, you can cross your right ankle over top of your left thigh. Now this might be enough for some of you, so you can always take a prop underneath. Make sure there's a flex in your right foot so your toes are pulling up to your shin. If you want to play with the full variation, you'll bend into your left knee and then heel toe your left foot to the right side of your mat and shins will stack. In either of these two variations, you can stay upright or you can walk fingertips forward, hinging, or even folding. Now, I know my mom has some pretty tight hips that just don't open like this. So third variation, which you can either do on your back on the ground, is figure 4, or you can even do against a wall, thread the needle. So from figure 4, right ankle crosses left, you would just float your left foot onto a wall and then move yourself in more for more sensation or further away for less. So all of the variation, I think the more comfortable we get at listening to that inner guide, the easier it is just to choose and not question our choices, but just listen consistently. What is your body telling you? What does it want you to feel and to listen to? What is that language that doesn't have words? And only you know that language. So trust that you are safe to listen to that. Allow your breath to deepen you into this pose. So as your breath starts to lengthen and you drop deeper into the exhales, your body will also start to soften. So just follow your breath rather than any external idea of what this needs to be. Know that this pose isn't meant to be comfortable. So you can let go of that expectation. It's meant to challenge you to stay in your body. But if that challenge, whatever depth you've chosen, is too much, that you keep disconnecting, recognize that this isn't really the practice of yoga. So then just ease out of some of the sensation so you can stay connected. And set yourself up for that success of simply being, rather than feeling like you're failing at this practice. So give yourself the space to be. We're already more than halfway through, just moving into our last minute of this hip opener. If there's anything that you're willing to let go of, so you can be more present, maybe just doing so now. And remembering that we only have so much that we can hold. If you think about your mind and your heart as a container or a vase, that all of the worries that you're holding, all the things you're scared of or anxious of, all of these sensations right now, it's a lot to hold. And so to be able to stay within this container of our body, sometimes we have to empty out and just surrender enough to let go, even if it's just for now. Those thoughts might come back and you might embrace them again. But for now, are you willing to just let go so that you can stay here in your body? Take a big breath in. And then let a long exhale out. Let's do it one more time. Inhale through your nose. And exhale through your mouth. Gently walk your fingertips in towards your body. And then untangle your top leg. If you are on your back, you'll also untangle your legs and you're gonna meet into seated for this next variation. Okay, once you've untangled your legs, just straighten them both out in front of you. And just like you did previously, you can walk your hands and lean back. Now this next variation is one of my favorite counter poses to that big external rotator of double pigeon. And so just whenever you're ready, you'll come back to shoulders over your hips. And then lean over to your left hip and only bend your right knee around and off to the side. Okay. So you want to create, ideally, it's about a 90-degree angle. So knee will line up with hip and then foot lines up with knee. Now this, again, isn't necessarily meant to be really comfortable. If sitting with hips square is a lot on that right hip, just lean to the left until you feel sensation, but it's not too much. So this is a kind of seated variation of half frog, or it's the back end of deer pose, but it's that internal rotation. So you're probably going to feel it pretty deep into that right hip. This is right where the femur, the upper thigh bone, is meeting into the socket and it's turning internally. And this is something we don't do a lot of in yoga, so for most of us, this will be pretty tight. Just make sure there's no pulling in your knee, and if there is, just lean more to the left or adjust the angle of your leg. If you want more sensation, press your right knee, hip, and ankle in towards the earth. So you're really rooting and grounding through that right side. All right, you're almost through. Just a few more breaths. See if you can relax shoulders and let your jaw fall open. You'll come out of this the same way you came in, so lean over to the left. You can use your right hand to scoop your back leg around and in front. And then plant both feet out wide and just wash your knees side to side. If you were on your back for the first side, you're welcome to make your way onto your back for figure 4 or thread the needle with the assist of the wall. If you're coming into your pigeon, this time it will be left ankle. So right leg straightens and left ankle crosses over. Optional just to play with this variation, or bend your right knee and heel toe that foot to the left side of your mat for a double pigeon variation. Okay. Again, take whatever variation serves you on this side, and sometimes it's not the same as the first side, so try the same variation. If it's not working, listen to your body. Your body is so incredibly smart, and it's always when we stop listening with our bodies and we focus on our minds, that's when we injure or we hurt ourselves, whether it's physically or emotionally or mentally. It's when we stop listening to that intuition that we tend to come up into this jarring portion of life where things don't fit, or we feel like we're fighting against ourselves. Okay, so if you're feeling that, just come back, ease back, and listen. Where does my body say stop? Where does it say go? What is my body inviting me into? Okay, so you can think about yourself as almost a guest within your body, and you wouldn't boss your host around. So perhaps just allowing yourself to ease in. Last little bit on this side. You give yourself some space. Maybe you just even just anchor back to your intention if you haven't traveled there for a while. Just become aware of this present moment and everything it has to offer you without even having to do anything. Gently, 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 gently walk your hands up in towards your body. If you are on your back, untangle your legs. You plant your feet out in front of you. If you're on your back, using these next few breaths just to come up to seated and pause. I'm just going to close off with a little bit of internal rotation again. So no rush, just walking your hands back beside your hips so your rooted shoulders over your hips. Lean to the right and then bend your left knee off to the side. You'll notice that left toes will point towards the edge of your mat, so you have that 90-degree angle of the foot too, which is going to help support your knee. Now, if you're really, really sticky with internal rotation, sitting square like this might not be for you. So you'll just take your right hand out and lean as much as you need to the right side. You can always change the angle of that leg if a perfect 90 is not your jam tonight. That's okay too. But just find some sensation into that left hip that feels like you can stay present for. So just close down your eyes once you've landed there and let yourself experience this new feeling in your hip. So complete opposite of where you just were. It should feel a little bit different. And can you explore that sensation? Try to even soften into your left hip. When we start to get deep, the muscles around tend to tense up. So you want to stay relaxed. You're almost through. Okay. And then just like you came into this pose, lean over to your right. And then you can use your left hand to scoop your knee forward. Plant both feet out in front of you and just wash your knees side to side. Okay. We are moving to Shavasana, so grab anything you need to get comfortable and warm. So maybe putting on socks, a sweater, a blanket. Okay. And if you want props, I always find pillows underneath the knees nice for Shavasana, especially for low back sensitivity. And you'll just make your way onto your spine. Now there's no rush to get there. If you need a little movement before you land, that's okay too. Just taking what you need so you can offer yourself stillness. So this pose, Shavasana translates as corpse pose. And it is, for me, it represents the most important part of this practice. And it's something that I like to do in later months of really giving ourselves a little bit more time to rest in Shavasana. Shavasana is essentially the goal, so to speak, of the yoga practice. Everything we've done so far tonight is to release tension, stress, unuseful thoughts, or distractions, so that we can be with ourselves fully and completely in stillness and silence. And so if that even seems challenging today, just think about coming back to the present moment. That by choosing to be in the present, you're letting go of distraction. You're letting go of the past and future worries and borrowed fear. And you're just trusting and creating space for right now. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfectly still or quiet, but just try to stay connected. Whether that's breath or intuition or mind, that this is your space to just rest. I'll bring you out of this in a couple of moments, so there's absolutely no rush. And I'll let you know so that you don't have to worry about time. Just take this breath by breath. It still seems absurd to me that we are moving into another year and how fast time moves, especially when we are busy doing and creating, and yet how at times it can seem to move really, really slow. And for me, something that I want to bring to each of you in this practice is just this space to be where you are. So knowing that we're going into this new place to maybe just let go of all the things that, have us overflowing and overwhelmed, and to just start to let some of that go so that we can bring in intention. So whatever your intention is, just bring it back into the forefront of your mind. And with palms open, can you just allow yourself to receive? I am open and willing to receive love, peace, space, trust, grace. That before we can keep this intention, we have to trust that we are capable of receiving it and that we deserve that intention. So you can stay here to close off your practice if you'd like. You're welcome to move to seated, but know that you don't have to if it feels like you are just sitting with your intention. And truly, so much love and gratitude for not just today, but for joining me so many other times this year from the bottom of my heart. Namaste.